me. It's just Kaya here today. Lisa's in a castle in Scotland and the internet's a bit in and out at the moment, so she doesn't think she'd be able to make a live. And I wanted to just share a quick story with you for this week's live, because I just know that me sharing my story of my experience will help you with your connections with your children. So for probably for this whole year, my 11-year-old son, I'm so grateful, he's 11, so he's growing a lot older. Ever since he was born, he's always loved like nighttime rituals, and he's an incredibly affectionate child. But he has wanted to have back scratches from me when he's going to sleep. So he has this ritual for the last year or so. When he's ready for bed, he'll ask me to come and scratch his back while he's falling to sleep. Sometimes I'll read while I scratch his back and read to him. And I noticed that he would do this thing where, as he's falling asleep, because he would fall asleep while I'm scratching his back, if I'm not quite scratching it in the way that he likes, or if I'm slowing down, or if I stop for a bit, he'll do this twitchy thing with his body to communicate to me that he doesn't like the way I'm doing it, or he'd like me to do it a bit more, or to keep going. And for quite a while that was really getting to me, it was triggering me, and I had all these stories about how he's not appreciating what I'm giving to him, and that's a really rude way to express something to me. It kind of had me feel like I wasn't important, and like I was being a bit objectified, like I was just the back scratcher there. Like, come on, you're not doing enough, hurry up and do it. And it would aggravate me to the point where sometimes I would just kind of get more grumpy while I was doing it, and my energy would close down a bit, and then there'd be a funky exchange between us while I'm attempting to do this really loving act with my son. And then sometimes I'd also out loud let him know, don't tell me like that, actually talk to me, or let me know what you want. It feels rude, it feels impersonal. And then we'd have these kind of weird disconnected engagements, because he was half asleep and it was just not a good time to work all that stuff out. And then about a week ago, I was scratching his back and he was almost asleep, and he did it again. And a few times in the past, actually, he has said he didn't even realize he was doing it. But he did it again, and instead of the habitual response of, he's doing that thing that I don't like, that is not respectful of me, and the whole entire story that I kept repeating, I just took a breath and realized that a whole other experience could be true for him. And I realized that, what if that was, given that he was half asleep, given that he was trying to get to sleep, what if that was the most perfect way he could communicate with me that he wanted me to keep going and that he wasn't asleep yet? And I just saw his little jerk of his body in a completely different light. And I realized, wow, if it's his perfect way of saying, I'm not quite asleep yet, I really like what you're doing, please do more. And if I just respond with more love, yeah, sure, I'm because I was before then really happy to scratch his back, then it's actually a really beautiful experience. And I didn't feel the resentment. And I realized how practical it is actually for him to not have to wake himself up and explain what he'd love with this back scratch that I had already said yes I would do. It wasn't like there was any coercion in the process. So I realized that in that situation, and also in many other ones, I have habits of disconnection and stories that run where by default I assume that something is going a particular way, in a way that is disconnecting, or in a way that is doesn't serve me and doesn't serve the relationship. It's like these hardwired defaults that I just fall into. And I realized that I don't actually have to run those stories, that we can choose completely different stories, and not to like if if the need for respect kept coming up and it was really important, then I would tune into that and out of the moment, like not when he's half asleep, like during the day, actually explore like what are some other ways we could creatively do that. But I realized that it wasn't actually coming from like a really real need. It was more just coming from a habit of disconnection, that he shouldn't shake his body like that, it means this, it means that. And then it was creating more disconnection in myself, with myself, and also with him. And it was just so full of assumption about what this means and what that means. And I just wanted to remind you all, if there's any situations where you're doing that with your children, to just take a breath and check like what kind of the first step is to just really look kind of from an objective standpoint, like what's really going on here, and then tune into like what's my intention and what do I really want, and how can I create a pattern or a habit of connection rather than disconnection in this situation. Yeah, so let me know what you got from that. And I will certainly continue to enjoy these really precious moments with my coming onto adolescent son. I'm so grateful that he wants me to back scratch him each night. And yeah, I'm grateful for that insight. So love you.